Hello and welcome to the new Tech Talk in Zyxel Support Campus. Today with me is David Mösner, Sales Support Engineer for Germany and EMEA, and I'm Horst Jagmeng, RMA Manager for EMEA. I hope you can hear us clear so that we can introduce our agenda to you. We will speak about the new implementation on Nebula Phase 15.1, which is GUI improvements, then feature enhancements and switch enhancements. And we will, of course, introduce the firmware management. And this part is done by David. I will just give you the information that you can every time listen and see our technical documentation and training on Support Campus Academy website. It's academy.zyxel.eu, and you can also visit us at any time on the partner portal. It's partner.zyxel.eu and the support campus. So we will immediately introduce the Nebula Phase 15.1, and I give the control over to David. Let's see what is new.
Yes, thank you very much. So we actually implemented a few enhancements on the new Nebula launch. For example, what we definitely improved were the GUI, where a lot of you guys asked us, hey, there's some stuff that could be done better, as well with the feature enhancements, where we also took a listen to you, and we now implemented some changes, also some very long expected changes, and we're going to take a look at them later on. So first of all, let's start with the 30-day service trial pack. We enhanced this in the likes that now each newly created Nebula organization has a free 30-day trial period for all licensed services that you can get. Those are organization-wide, so you can have them then activated on all your lower sites. And we have our 5 different trial services included there. You now have also a free MSP pack trial for 30 days for newly created Nebula accounts.
So it's a free tool that every customer that purchases a Nebula device can start testing for 30 days. But it's important how you activate it and when you stop it.
Exactly, that's very important. So before our phase changes, you just had the possibility to activate the trial at the beginning in the wizard. And if you opted out of that, you were not able to reactivate it again. So now what we did is we refined that process. So then when you now you create your organization and your site, and then you go to your Nebula dashboard and you get a notification window where you then can select either all licenses to be activated in trial version or some very specific licenses. And those licenses you can as well now activate after you close that window. So basically at first you said, no, I don't want it. But later down the road, you say, okay, now my customer for that site wants to have that. So let's first activate the trial. That's now possible as well.
Mm-hmm. So you can skip the activation first time, complete the installation of the network, bring it possibly to your customers.
Yes.
Install them so they are online, and then you can start the test version so that the full 30 days are available.
Exactly. Again, this is organization-wide. So if you activate the trial for the organization, you have it in all of your sites that are under set organization. And you can do that if you go to organization-wide configure and license and inventory. And there you can then as well activate the licenses if you did not do it in the first step while creating the organization.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting, and also a good service from Zyxel, so you get to learn the functions of that packages in 30 days without spending money on it.
Exactly. So you can just try it out and see if that's fitting for your customer or your, let's say, your use case. If it's not, no harm done. Now you know how it works, and you can as well then go to other customers of yours with that package and say exactly, okay, this is how it works. This is what you can do. Do you want it or not?
So what is if I am very satisfied with the package and I want to buy a full package of the license? What happens to the trial license?
So the trial license itself will run until the 30 days. And after that, it will then take into account the full license that you bought. If you don't want that, you can also cancel the trial at any time, at any given time. But please keep in mind that as soon as you canceled it, you cannot reactivate it.
Okay, so you must really understand 30 days trial has to run out.
Exactly.
And then you activate the full license, or you don't extend the service. If you cancel it earlier than the 30 days, it's gone. You cannot re-establish it. Okay. By the way, if you have any questions that we should answer here during this session, please use the question box in your tool and send it directly to us. We will try to answer them in this running session. Later, you can send us your questions directly via the support portal.
All right. Now, let's take another look at the next enhancement that we did with the email notification. What do we mean by that? Now, before phase 15.1, when you had a license that ran out, be it Zyxel, be it Nebula, or any other service that we give you, you just got an email like, okay, your license ran out, but no further explanation, okay, which license, which device. So you needed to track everything to the last device and license and day. Now with phase 15, or more specific with 15.1, we changed that. So first of all, you get your proper name that's obtained from our database. You get your organization where the license has been run out. It shows you the site name, the device, and it shows you which license is exactly running out, how much days you have left, and you can now directly go to the Zyxel marketplace with the Renew Now button to renew the license.
So it's easier, and you do not run into a problem that the license will run off and deactivate, so the services are canceled. So it's a good flow, which is now also personalized.
Exactly, it's personalized, and with the Zyxel marketplace, the license also gets automatically attributed to the correct device where you buy it for. So you have really like that seamless continuation of service, which is very important.
And less effort.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Next up, we have the device location placement. If you take a look at your device or at any device, basically in Nebula, you can see on the map where the device is. Beforehand, that was done automatically, and depending on where the device was. Now, what we can do is we can update the device location manually more easily than before. We can either use the device's IP address, then that goes through our GeoIP database and then basically updates the location on that. Or what you can do is you can take the location from your web browser or use an address, or now you can as well use coordinates from a map to update the location.
The specified address. That's
exactly.
So that this is no longer that your devices appear somewhere in a foreign city during the installation.
Yes.
You can immediately put them on the site location so that it's all in one place.
And you can do it now basically. Before you ship the device out to the customer, you just go ahead after it's registered in Nebula and you type in the address of the customer, and as soon as he looks into his site, the device is already at the right place.
Okay, excellent.
The same is for the site location itself, that you can now add. And when you add the device to the Nebula site, you can directly specify then a default location.
Okay. And now we come to a point where we are going to save some energy in the best meaning, but it's basically saving data. Some people from the previous session we had in Germany were not so satisfied with the service, but you must understand that Nebula is a worldwide system, so it is offered for any kind of sites, even for customers that do not automatically look into the Nebula Control Center every 30 days. So they are not definitely interested in historical data. And that's the reason why we now introduce that there's a cloud saving mode activated.
Yes. Just a quick heads up. We have one question from Ian with the firmware management. We will come to that at a later point. So I'll just record that question here and we'll answer it then when we come to the further firmware enhancements.
All right.
Coming back to the cloud saving mode, that's correct. Before phase 15.1, we had the problem in quotation marks that if you did not log in on the base, let's first say on the base version, so on the free version of Nebula, when you did not log in within 30 days to your site or organization, it entered the cloud saving mode. Which then did not show any use data or device data at all. So you had that banner on top and you had to basically click through 3 or 4 windows and stuff to get it deactivated. Now we simplified that process. What does that mean? If you take a look at the slide here, you just now get one pop-up window which says welcome back, you haven't logged in, and then you just have a slider down there which you just click on. It deactivates the cloud saving mode. You click on close, and then after 10 to 15 minutes, you get again use data and live data from the site.
The devices itself will send data continuously to the cloud, but the cloud will not store them historically.
Yes.
So the flow will then be reactivated and recorded.
Exactly.
You can see that in the screenshot. There's also a little light blue bar in the background, which was the former version how we showed that, and it's now more easily and also impressive to see. So you have to stop this cloud saving service.
Exactly. As well to say, the cloud will still record, let's say, debug logs and stuff like that. That will continue to be backed up to the cloud. It's just the live data. We have one question. Is there a way to deactivate permanently the cloud saving mode? Yes, there is. That's the Plus or Pro pack for the site. So if you want to permanently disable that, either log in every 30 days, that will prevent it.
Which is still free of charge.
Exactly, is free of charge. Or you go ahead with the Plus pack, that's already in there. Or you go directly for the Pro pack for that organization.
With the Pro pack, it looks a little bit easier.
Yes.
If you take a look at the next slide, you can see that there's a complete list which you can use. There.
Exactly. Well, it's not the Pro pack directly, it's the MSP pack, which means that if you have multiple organizations in your MSP pack, even though that you have, for example, for that MSP pack as well, a Pro pack, that does not mean that it is automatically applied to all sites. As you can see here, we have a few sites that have that cloud saving mode symbol, but instead of going now through each site and clicking it, you have the option to globally disable it for the next 30 days again.
Okay, let's go into the world of gateways.
Exactly.
What's new with the USG Flex series?
When it comes to the USG Flex series on Nebula, as you may know, we previously had only UTM features on there, and we had a license for that. We now also have a gold security pack for the USG Flex, basically the same that we have for the ATP. So you will get as well sandboxing, for example, which was previously an ATP only feature, now available for the USG Flex with the gold security pack here.
We have to change all our commercials. I just recognized.
Yeah, well, but
that's a good idea.
That's marketing.
So it's also good for the customers. You now
Yes.
get something for free additionally.
Exactly.
The same pack is now also for USG Flex series.
Which means you get also now the secure Wi-Fi included, which is as well, I think, a big bonus point here. because you then have really ATP standards on the USG flags.
All right.
When it comes to routing, we had a lot of customers complaining that it was not intuitive enough and not too easy to set it up properly in Nebula. So we listened, we did some more enhancement here. More specifically, we now pre-populate a routing rule with certain objects. For example, the LAN interfaces. We now have as well the GeoIP locations for countries that are already in there. So you don't have to go and first add them and then go back and create a rule. You have them now pre-populated in there, which is, in my opinion, as well, very, very easy now to set up policy routing or traffic shaping in Nebula.
And it gives you an idea if you see a list, what to select instead of finding out what needs to be done.
Yes, exactly. So you just have it basically like an on-premise device where you have your pre-filled objects there, and you just click it and you click on save and you're done.
Very good.
Let's take a little look at live tools and basically troubleshooting here. We made a minor enhancement to the live tool for the ping check. Previously, we only had the possibility to do a ping check from the WAN interface. We now changed that so that we have added now as well LAN and VLAN interfaces. Important here is that the ping checker does not take into account SNAT. So, for example, a LAN to WAN ping will not be possible. For that, you still have to use the WAN interface, because then in that case, that wouldn't be more like a trace route and not a purely ping test. But that's just on a side note here. And as you can see, if you want to access that, you just go, as always, to your firewall. Under your monitor, you just go to the live tools, choose ping, and now you have the drop-down list with all your interfaces pre-filled as well. So it just takes your configuration, it takes a look, okay, we have a LAN 1, a LAN 2, we have certain VLANs. It just populates that list, and then you can directly go ahead, click the network that you want to check, and then basically type in the address or the FQDN that you want to ping and see what's going on.
Okay. And now is the moment where we normally would start to pop the confetti and have a firework,
yes,
but
exactly.
we don't want to clean up the studio afterwards. But we are now going into a function which is really demanded for a very long time. And I hope you are very happy that we now implemented that.
Yes, and that would be the non-Nebula VPN peer with a domain name or DNS. That was previously not possible at all in Nebula with a non-Nebula VPN peer, which meant that if you, for example, had let's say a remote site where there was a 4G or 5G WAN with a non-fixed IP address, you basically would had to go in day by day and change the WAN IP for the non-Nebula peer. This is now completely changed. Now you just go ahead and type in your FQDN or your DNS and call it a day. So no longer going in each day, changing the IP address, and depending on how much sites or organization you have in Nebula, that's a lot of time that you're spending just updating, let's say in quotation marks, a stupid IP address.
Yeah, especially when you have very dynamic
exactly
like LTE, for example. You can see that on the next slide. There is normally the request every day, what is your one IP address? And now you have simply the DNS name.
Exactly. You just add the DNS and call it a day, and you're done.
Yeah. So I hope you are having a party for that in the next days by trying this. We have one more question in our chat group.
Yes. When I create rules for security, I can write only for 10 ports. I must create second rule to add more ports. The new version resolved this situation. That depends what you mean with ports. So basically what you can do is you can add multiple interfaces to that. There is still the limitation, as far as I'm aware, that you can only add up to 10 interfaces per rule. Okay, for example, port 80 and port 443. Yes, that's correct. That's still the case, but what you should be able to do is basically as well give some port ranges to it. The main thing here is that this is mainly a Nebula limitation that we are currently facing from the code in the back end.
Maybe solved in other versions.
Yes, this may be solved in other versions.
Working on it.
We're working on it. In any case, what's always helping is if you get in touch with the support and post it as a feature request so that we can collect your feedback and convey it to HQ to get that fixed with a higher priority. Yeah. Same as we did, for example, with the best example here with the domain name in the VPN in the Non-Nebula VPN peer.
Finally implemented.
Exactly.
And that's the same nearly with all functions. It's no matter if it's a firmware that we take later into consideration or the versions of Nebula, the way how it handles configuration and updates to devices. It's an international system. It runs all across the world and over the 78 markets that we are serving. And you have to regard all customers' wishes in that way. We can only collect it, forward it to the development team, and they have to decide which has higher priority, which is a function, and which is something like nice to have.
Yes.
So
and the more requested it is, the higher the priority will be.
That's the reason why such implementation is faster or takes longer time.
Yes. Another question, can we have the slides used today?
They will be downloaded from the Academy site where we post every recording and also every slides that we show to you, also from the historical tech talks we had. So just visit academy.zyxel.eu and then you can download the material later.
Exactly. All right. Let's take a next step and take a look at some minor enhancements that we did in Nebula. One of them in particular, which I'm very happy about, is the changes to our small business access points, mainly the NWA 50 and 55AX. They now have the possibility to use both intra-BSS traffic blocking and layer 2 isolation, which means
and the 90.
And the 90. Yeah, that's correct. Thanks, Christian.
Christian is in a technical background, so he just waves and says it's also the NWA.
So what does that mean in particular? We can now as well use the guest network functionality and the captive portal in Nebula with those access points, which was previously not possible because they were missing the layer 2 isolation in Nebula.
That makes me very happy because I use these devices in environment where are like cafes or horse stables where are many guests coming, and not having a real guest network is a little bit of a minus for that. But now as they are implemented, that's a really good price relation.
We had before we had to work around to run them in standalone, which was possible, but now we can use them as well in Nebula, which I think is the main point of those small access points. In any case. So we then as well put in some smart mesh enhancements here with the smaller access points, which now means that we just basically got the possibility to now manually enable or disable the downlink connection on the repeater AP, which means that you can now, if the AP supports it with another LAN port, you can plug in your PC to it and use it basically as a wireless client then. And we can now as well select the root AP manually, which was beforehand not possible, which might be needed sometimes if you have multiple root APs and the repeater AP connects always to, let's call it the wrong root AP, for example, with a weaker signal, which technically shouldn't happen, or maybe that repeater has then too many hops in the network, so we have too slow of a data throughput in the network, so we can now switch them manually. And we have now the uplink AP reconnect tool as well, So in that case, that the repeater loses connection to the root AP, we can now force it to manually reconnect and not wait the set timer.
And it fixes topology issues. So
yes.
You can base it directly, root and repeater have a fast, a stable connection.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, we are already entering the section 3 of our presentation here, which is basically done for the switch enhancements. What is new in this area?
Yes. So for switch enhancements, we put it under the easier than ever slogan, because one change that we implemented was the MAC authentication with the Nebula Cloud Authentication Server, or short NCAS, which now enables us to use MAC authentication on a organization and or site-wide level on the switch ports. That's done with our, like I said, with the NCAS server, which basically sits behind an FQDN that runs in our data center and then talks to the switch to basically link up and update the database with the newest entries that get access to the network. In that matter, we also renamed the radius policies to authentication, because that's, in our opinion, more intuitive, because when we're talking about a radius policy, that implies that you'll have to use a radius server, an external one, which is not entirely true, because with the NCAS, we have a similar functionality built into Nebula. So let's just quickly check it. So what we have here is we have the MAC from the client added to the NCAS. So if we connect the client to the switch, be it over an access point or directly to a port, the switch will then check, okay, the MAC address of the client, check with the server, and then get the response from the server if that client is allowed or not, and then decides, okay, do I authorize or do I not authorize the client?
So that's a special higher security for sensitive data areas,
yes.
like organizations that have a kind of development or even sensitive data, but also in areas like a restaurant or hotel where
yes.
people come and
exactly.
simply connect to a UTP port at the switch and try to get internet. But that is a risky area because there's no
exactly.
specified access control, and that serves this problem and solves it.
Yes. To use that, you can just simply go to switch configure and then the newly renamed authentication page, and then just choose the Nebula Cloud Authentication. Add your trusted device on a MAC base. So you just enter the MAC address of that device, and then you can use it. So you just add the MAC address as a normal client. In Nebula, add it, and then you're basically set and good to go.
This is a simpler thing for single accesses, but we also have something which is more dynamic.
Exactly. We have something now implemented that is a bit more dynamic, which is the dynamic VLAN, which you already have on the on-premise devices or on the on-premise switches. Which means that we basically copied it over to the cloud. What does that mean for you is that you now have the possibility to use 802.1x for port authentication of clients on the switch. Please keep in mind that this needs an external radius server, because that's a functionality that we cannot have in our built-in Nebula authentication tool.
Because it's general VLAN based.
Exactly, because it's generally VLAN based, and that functionality is not in the Nebula Cloud authentication itself. So how can we set that up? It's as well very simple, way more simple than on the on-premise devices. And I mean, that's the main goal of Nebula, make stuff simple. So for that, you just go to switch, configure, and again, the authentication page. Then as a server type, you choose your external radius server. You add your server there, and then down in the authentication policy itself, you just say, okay, I want to use the 802.1x, and you click on add. From there, you just need to enable that functionality on the switch itself. And that is as well very, very easy, because you just can take all your switch ports and basically make a bulk update to the configuration. And then under the authentication policy, you just choose the policy that you created. You change the type of the ports to access, and you're set. As soon as you click on update and save, and it pushes the configuration to the switches, you're good to go. But one thing to do before is the uplink port. If you do not have it in trunk and allowed VLANs all, you need to specify the VLANs that you want to allow. So in this example, we have the dynamic VLANs 10 and 20 and a management VLAN with the PVID 1. So we need to allow them specifically in the port. We could choose all, but that makes no sense in my opinion in a high security area, or when I want to button down on the security. It makes no sense to have the uplink port trunk all VLANs through.
No, it's too major setting, so could be
exactly
include everything or nothing. Okay, then we are already going into the section number 4, where we show the firmware enhancements.
Yes.
It's a little bit, not say complicated, but there's a system behind that, because we want to establish that our customers always find a working version on each device they buy.
Exactly.
Which is the base from which out we enhance the new features. And that's the point where we introduce that firmware management.
Exactly. And now we're also coming back to the question that we had before. I'll try to answer it within the slides. If there's something still unclear after that, please feel free to specify it more in detail. So point 1, what we wanted to do, and which I think we achieved actually, is transparency. So previously we had always a lot of questions from our customers. Okay, what does this mean when it states in Nebula it is this firmware, and why is that? So we added some more specifications to the different states, which we'll see in a later slide. But for now, we have the possibility now to skip basically the initial firmware upgrade in Nebula. I like to compare it a little bit to Windows. So basically, if we installed our Windows fresh from an installation medium, that's our base firmware. So it runs, but it does not have all the bells and whistles. So what we can do then is we can do an upgrade or a Windows update. That would be the stable branch of our firmware. So basically you get the latest bug-free version of the firmware with tested functionalities.
Which is working for
which is working for the majority of our customers and devices as well, yes. If we want to have the very latest functionalities, you can go for the latest branch, which would be the equivalent to Microsoft's Insider program. So you get a firmware that runs, but might have some minor issues or minor stuff that's not working perfectly fine and for all customers, but you have then all the latest bells and whistles and functionalities. So that's a point where you then can decide, do I want to have everything at the latest, so basically at the bleeding edge, or do I want to have a stable environment with a tested firmware where everything runs smoothly and works as planned.
Yeah, and you will also see that we give you the option when you would like to install this. So
exactly.
The basic version, which is coming for a device which is already Nebula aware, is in the box stored for some time at distributor or your own site. So that has a basic function firmware which allows it to connect to the Nebula Control Center and update the latest stable version on your request. So you can do it immediately or later. And then you can decide you want to have the latest firmware or you stay at the stable.
Yes. And you can always switch between the two.
Yeah.
So you can, for example, let's say you go for the latest, but then, okay, there is some stuff that's not working for me in that environment. So you can go back to the stable version as well. And yes, we now come to the schedule, and the changes that we did in the firmware overview basically is we cleaned it up. We cleaned it up by a lot. So you have it now separated in your firewall, your mobile router, your switches, your access points. And from here, it shows you directly the status where your device is currently in. So if it's up to date, if it's on the latest, if there's an upgrade available, if there's a security hotfix available, which is also very important here to note. And as Horst already mentioned, you then have the possibility to say, okay, I want to auto upgrade, for example, here in this slide, it's every Sunday at midnight. Or you say, okay, I want to never update it automatically, but then I can set up a schedule. So for example, let's say you have a company with a lot of access points, so you don't want to do the upgrade in the middle of the day where everyone is working, and then they're basically storming the IT department, like, what the heck did you guys just do?
I have no internet.
Exactly. So you can have your schedule there and set it, for example, in the night, or just when everyone has left the office, that the upgrade does, and the IT then stays for, let's say, 30 minutes more to just check, okay, the upgrade went smoothly and everything is back to normal, so we can now go home as well.
So peace to the administrator.
Yes.
Okay.
So to further list that down, what did we do in the improved layout for this? The firmware management itself has been now split into a organization-wide overview and a device table, mainly for performance issues on the web page loading. But you now still get, and that's where we come back to the question here, is the available version. So it tells you which version is now installed and if there's an upgrade available for it, depending on which status you choose or which branch of update you used, be it stable or being latest. And in the overview tab, you then basically see the upgrade policies for each device in set side, and on the device tab, you see basically each single device listed down with each firmware version on it. So basically what you can say is that the organization-wide gives you just, okay, this site is up to date or not. And if you want to have a more detailed look at it, you can go to the device tab.
Mm-hmm. I think you can also see that on the next slide where the listing of the devices is done, so that you can decide when you want to do an update for a specific product.
Exactly.
Or in the overview page, you can see it then site-wide.
Exactly, yes. You can see the site, you can see the current version that's on it, and you see the firmware status and the availability there. And you see as well what I just mentioned, the firmware type with a general availability, but we're going to take a look at that as well in one of the next slides, is basically your base firmware, or basically an older stand of the firmware itself. We have one question here. If I upgrade my device to V15, can I go back to V14? So the V15, that's basically the status of the Nebula. That has nothing to do with your device itself.
Not with the firmware.
No, that's not the firmware. That's just basically that. If you want to have the analogy of a firmware, that's basically the firmware of the Nebula Cloud Control Center and not of your device. So you cannot go back to V14 because the server is updated by us to V15. So that you have all the new stuff that we can give you in Nebula.
Automatically on the server. If you want to have a look, there's a demo site which you can use there's already everything online, as far as I know. Possibly in the customer side, it may take a few days before the version 15 is rolled out.
Yes, exactly. I hope that answered the question. If not, feel free to further declare it in the chat. Let's take a look on a little bit more of flexibility and control standpoint in this case. What you also spoken already about is the auto upgrade. So basically it automatically checks for the new firmware and just performs the upgrade process. Granted to the selected time and day, that's set there. But if that's not wished, because you first want to see, okay, maybe you have a small testing site as well on your end, so you want to first test the firmware there and then go to the rollout side and then do it. You can do that as well with the upgrade at option, where you can set the schedule. You can also do a manual upgrade with upgrade now, which was there already before, but now new you have the ignore upgrade. So basically what that does is it disables all updates to the firmwares in total to that organization and or site, unless there is basically a critical update that is needed. So for example, there is a hotfix available for some security stuff that needs to be on the device. Then Nebula will start the upgrade process for that.
Yeah, that's important also for the network security, that we update at least the gateway firmware and for some access points, but you decide when you want to do that. So it gives you flexibility and also is convenient to use that.
Exactly. Now let's take a little more detailed look into the different firmware types. So as we already mentioned, latest is basically the insider branch for Windows updates. So you get really the bleeding edge firmware with all the new stuff in it, but it might have some stuff that's not working for your environment. Stable, that's your regular full release, which has been tested by us, by our development team, that it really runs smoothly and is working for the majority of our customers and devices. The general availability, like I said in one of the slides beforehand, is basically an official firmware release, but is neither on the latest nor the stable branch. So be it the base firmware or just an older firmware at all.
An example would be that devices that were not Nebula aware before with the firmware version get a Nebula aware firmware and then can use this firmware version to enter the Nebula Control Center.
Exactly. For example.
So that's let's say the base, the fundamental thing that the device needs to have installed to get enter to the Nebula Control Center.
Then we have the dedicated and beta branch. The dedicated branch is, for example, a firmware version that has been made specifically for that site because, for example, there is a functionality that this customer requested, and that's then basically a pre-rollout so that we can try it out with the customer. Is it working before we put it into the regular release? The beta release branch would be the unofficial firmware version for hotfixes that we have on the on-premise devices. It's the ITS or the weekly versions, which is now as well made available in the Nebula Cloud. Keep in mind that this needs to be done in conjunction with the support team. Or if asked, it can also be uploaded manually by you with the help of our support team with the Zon tool to the local web guy. But as always, the preferred way to go here is through the support team, through the Nebula itself, because that makes life not only for you, but also for us a little bit easier.
And we are able to monitor then if something happens.
Exactly, which is not possible if we upload it manually from a local client, for example.
Correct.
Just have a little look now on where we can change the actual branch and the schedules. We can do that under the site-wide configuration for the firmware management and in the devices tab, where we can then select our devices that we want to update, we can tell them, okay, I want you to update from the stable or from the latest branch. And then if we have a pro pack, we can do the scheduled upgrade where we can then say, okay, I want you to upgrade tomorrow night at midnight, and then upgrade directly from the latest or the stable branch.
Okay, so all choices to take. And the same will be then also happening on a site-wide information in the banner.
Yes. You will get as well a banner, for example, if you have a firmware upgrade in the pending status for that site. So basically, if there's a firmware update available, but you did not yet update it, and if you want to know more about the upgrade or what it does change on your device, you can then go as well directly to the Zyxel community, where you will have the changelog of that firmware version available. Now, for the different states, we have 3 states here, which is the upgrade availability. So there's just a general upgrade available. If you don't want it, you can ignore it. If you want it, you can upgrade. Then we have the orange little indicator there with the upgrade available. That means that you have a schedule set for that update, which is also visible here in the slide. It says upcoming upgrade on set day with that hourly schedule. And then when it's red, it states that a critical update is required, and that's going to be pushed to the device according to your schedule as well. Just to let you know, okay, there is a major update and you need to have that if you want to keep using your device in Nebula.
Yeah, that's all for the actual updates. I think if you have a question to this, we would ask you to send us your questions now. We're still looking into the chat window if a customer or a visitor has a question, but you can also send this to our support portal. And while we are doing that, I can update you about the next Tech Talk.
Just one question just came in. Can we downgrade the device on Nebula, or is it necessary to open a case? Exactly. So the downgrade that you can do is, for example, like I mentioned before, is if you are on the latest branch, you can switch back to the stable branch, which is generally, like I would say, a firmware version behind the latest. If you need to go further down, then that's usually anyways asked by the support. So you're already in touch with the support itself. So when it comes to a downgrade, like 3 or 4 versions back, then yes, you need to open a case. If it's just a switch from the latest version back to a stable version, then you can do that yourself with the little with a little selection window there in the upgrade.
But do you remember that we have that in the last half year?
No, not at all. So
it's really seldom that you need to go back so long.
Exactly, and usually those firmwares are not on production sites. So that's then really if we have a testing site with a customer, because there is maybe in a beta version, there is some stuff that's not working. So in those cases, yes, that could be possible. But I would even go so far and say in the last year, I didn't have any case like that.
No, that's why we have this stable version. It's like I said in the meeting, it's a version that is rolled out to all devices in the world, so it must be stable. Otherwise, we have an epidemic issue. And of course, the customers can trust that the Nebula Center always chooses the best option for this specific model.
Yes.
And you then still have the choice doing the update to the stable version or the latest with new functions. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, then we go one step further just to introduce the next Tech Talk, which is always on the last Wednesday of each month. So the last Wednesday next month is the 30th of November. And our second episode of the Zyxel next generation firewall will be rolled out then with the subject firewall setup. So you can sign up to this in the next days on the Academy portal. And you can also see the banner on the Support Campus website when you enter support.zyxel.eu. As we have nothing else in the questions, I would also like to remind you that we have value-added services, which means that we can help you to install and set up Zyxel devices. You can purchase different licenses for that on the support portal, and our technical specialists like David or Christian or any other of that member team will help you to set up the device based on the license. And the last hint is, of course, that we are also having a LinkedIn channel where you can see latest updates about the business, and the YouTube channel where you mainly find me unboxing
our YouTube
products and also showing the first installation. And of course, this version will then also be uploaded in a few hours so that you can look it again. For this, I would say a brilliant introduction of yourself in the Tech Talk, David. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you for watching us and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We're Zyxel, and we're your networking ally.